Fantastic. Brilliant. So welcome. I'm just to introduce and kick this session off. So I'm Sally Andreu. I'm the Skills Hub Manager at OxLEP, and I oversee the skills delivery. And I'm going to give you just a little bit of an introduction, not too much, because I know you want to get onto the main event, which is Mark's bit. So just really kind of share OxLEP and who we are. So we are a organisation that's really formed to help develop Oxfordshire's economic partnerships to ensure that there's growth within Oxfordshire and also that people have got access to good jobs. And as part of this work, we have long focused on apprenticeships and how to support apprenticeships and show the value of apprenticeships. And we do that in a variety of ways. So we do an Oxford Apprenticeship Awards. We have our ambassador scheme where we get businesses to offer their young people usually to go and talk to schools about why they chose that career path as an apprenticeship. And this is part of one of the things that we've developed is through our what's called social contract programme, which kicked off in spring 2022. It was 1.7 million, and really we're focusing on how to support those groups that have been impacted most by the COVID-19 pandemic. And we really want to ensure that Oxfordshire residents have the access to good jobs, good sustainable long-term quality jobs and through apprenticeships. And we are focusing on that. So some of the delivery we've looked at is our levy, and I'll show you the next slide as where we've got. So the levy, if you're not aware, is is kind of for those large employers that have got £3 million a wage bill, will have a 0.5% taken off and put into a levy pot. And those businesses are encouraged to use that to create their own apprenticeships, and some do, some don't. And those businesses who don't, they are able to pledge what was 25%, but now is 50% of their levy to actually support smaller businesses to help create new apprenticeships. So we've got Leah and Nikki on the call, and they're amazing apprenticeship advisors, and they have actually done an amazing job in actually helping to exceed our targets to raise £3.2 million worth of levy to create 175 plus new apprenticeships, and we're looking for more businesses to actually offer and accept levy in help to grow the whole levy scheme that we've got running. What we do also recognise, and this is where Andrea's role is so crucial, is there's a real challenge around apprenticeship retentions. So nationally, in 2022-23, there were 337,000 apprenticeship starts, but only pretty well half of those, 162,000, actually completed their apprenticeships. And that's where we want to help support more businesses actually understand and navigate some of the potential barriers to that completion. And this is why it's so crucial these webinars are there to help and support businesses with that journey. And it is a journey. We've got our own apprentice on roll, and she's done an amazing job, but it has been quite difficult to navigate, and this is where we want to try and remove some of those barriers. So if you've got any information, if there's anything you'd like to know more about with the levy, and certainly the team are on the call, if you'd like to have a chat, please reach out to us. So with no further ado, I'm going to hand over to Mark and Andrea to take the presentation up, and thanks for joining us today.
Andrew, did you want to?
No, absolutely. Thank you.
I had
for
a
that,
perfect
Sally.
introduction.
It was a perfect introduction, and I will hand over to Mark now. But just to say, if anyone has any questions as we go along, please feel free either to raise your hand or put them in the chat, and we'll do them as we go along. But we should still also have time at the end of the webinar for a short question and answer session. And obviously this is being recorded as well. So without further ado, over to you, Mark. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. So first off, I suppose the best thing to say is, who am I? Who's this person talking to you? What do I know? My name's Mark Holmes, and I work for Hawk Training. We're an independent training provider. national independent training provider, I should add. But I've also been in the sector. I was counting up the other day, now to sit down, 21 years. And with Hawk Training, I've been with Hawk Training just coming up for 10 years now. And I started off as a tutor, working, or 3-4 years at least, 5 years I was a tutor, working with lots of different apprentices and employers as well. And then I moved into a quality assurance role for a number of years. And now for the last 3-4 years, I've actually been working as a curriculum lead. So I'm writing programs, I'm writing the content. More importantly, though, I'm speaking to apprentices and speaking to employers to find out what works, what doesn't work, what can we change. And part of my role is to feed that back into the Institute for Apprenticeships and the Department of Education via different means, just to, you know, put pressure and to highlight some of the questions that employers are facing as well as apprentices are facing. Please feel free today, you know, to ask any, unmute yourself, put a question in the chat if you feel free, and I'll definitely do my utmost to answer. Now, as you saw at the beginning, this webinar is named Resilience and in brackets mentoring. In fact, I think now thinking about it, the brackets should be taken out because resilience and mentoring really go hand in hand. And what do we mean by resilience? So the first bit, just to get a bit of a feel for you, is what do you understand resilience to mean? There are 5 pillars of resilience, but if we was just to describe resilience, what do you think that means for an apprentice to start with? What do you think, if you was to say an apprentice is going to be resilient, what do you think that means to them? Any thoughts? Stay the course, definitely, Helen. Yeah. And think about bounce back. Yes. And in fact, I heard the phrase, I don't know if it's an English phrase, bounce back ability is something. I wouldn't even attempt to spell it, but bounce back ability is defined as resilience. What other things do you think go into resilience, though? If an apprentice is going to be resilient in their role, what do you think they're going to have to do? Rita?
I think they need to be able to see their future self and what practitioner it is they're going to be. I think they really need that vision to carry them through all the challenges, really. So they've got to have a sense of destination and who they want to become. Superb.
Yeah, brilliant. It's both. It's all of those things, Helen. And this is sometimes where, if you're an employer of an apprentice, especially, you might be just driven and focused, especially on what we call the core skills. So they've got to learn knowledge, they've got to have skills, they've got to learn behaviours. But what is often forgotten are these other life skills aspects, which are sometimes referred to as the wider curriculum, the wider stuff, developing yourself as a person in today's modern society, working in an employer organisation, and understanding where you fit in. So you're talking about, you know, absolutely I'll use that phrase, I like it, I can't say it, bounce back ability is, you know, that's a real skill that potentially we all need, whether we're an apprentice or not. You know, any colleague in an organisation will need to know how to be resilient. The experts say resilience is the process and outcome of successfully adapting to difficult or challenging life experiences, especially through mental, emotional and behavioural flexibility. Quite a wordy statement, but I think Helen, Rita, you summarised that and added to it as well. But this is often forgotten because an apprentice is learning, they're learning on the job, they're actually got a role to play. And as such, they need to develop and be aware of the different skills and attributes to be able to adapt, that's the key word, to challenging life experiences, life/work experiences. And resilience is aiding them to be able to develop those skills. And this is the part that employers play, as you know, was mentioned earlier. You know, retention is a key key issue. It's been around with apprenticeships for a long time in terms of retain those people who are really enthusiastic to start their apprenticeship, whether they've already been in post or they're a brand new person straight from another sector or straight out of school or college. They're really enthusiastic at the beginning. They're really encouraged, and then you'll find, like we all do, they'll hit a barrier at some point and they might have to adapt and they might have to change, and they'll be challenged in terms of emotions around not quite succeeding at what they're doing. And a key role for an employer is to understand what resilience means, and then we'll obviously look a little bit later how that goes hand in hand with mentoring as well. So there are 5 pillars of resilience, and we're going to go through each one. There's the emotional well-being pillar, and it is recognised as being the most fundamental pillar. And this is about developing, supporting, having a conversation with your apprentices around their views of themselves and the world, where they fit in the organisation, but where they fit in the wider landscape of working in a specific sector or an area, depending what sectors you're in. Rita, am I right in thinking your care sector? Have I made that up, or is that true?
No, you're right. My background is nursing and social care.
So I would imagine there are a lot of views currently, if not always been around, the views of themselves as a nurse, challenging where they fit, and dreaded to say, but is this really what I want to be doing now, type of thing. Plus also where they fit in the world and stuff like that. And it's thinking there, and across all those other sectors. Helen, what sector are you in, by the way, just out of interest?
Engineering / manufacturing.
Engineering. Wow. Okay. So there's that's my background as well. So there's been some massive changes around manufacturing and engineering in this country over the last 10 years, I would say, if not longer. And thinking about, as people in the manufacturing sector, how they're seeing themselves and what they're doing. So it's almost like this isn't just saying as one of these pillars is about, providing therapy for people, but it's about saying, having those open conversations with your apprentices, and just getting where their thoughts are and what they're doing and how they're continuing through their apprenticeship and moving forward. So emotional well-being is the fundamental pillar. Then the next pillar is, and this is hitting on what both Helen and Rita, you said earlier, about, sticking the course and bit of future thinking as well. So also encouraging your apprentice to think about their ability to motivate themselves, to set themselves their own goals, and also a forward-thinking approach to progress through life. And that's something that can only really be developed and practiced by having those honest conversations with people. And I've always said with all these things, keep the end in sight. Always keep the end in sight, because and being quite honest as well with the apprentices that not everything's going to go smoothly, and how might they approach and tackle those aspects of things when it doesn't go according to plan. And what do we do if the plan breaks? What do we do? How do we overcome that? So that's that inner drive and developing it. And then, exactly as you said, one of those pillars there, Rita, you was talking about future focus on the solutions and positive change. Also, which is a lot of organisations sometimes really struggle with, and it's a mindset change as well, accepting failures. A lot of people think, if something's gone wrong or it hasn't gone according to plan, that's it, it's all over, but it's about looking at as a failure. I had a very good mentor a long time ago when I was in manufacturing, and he basically said to me, don't think of it as a failure, think of it as an opportunity. And I never got my head around that for a number of years, but that's what the mindset you want to sort of be able to create as an employer in departments and organizations, thinking about it's an opportunity to improve. And that's not a glib statement. Let's take why you failed or why didn't think something go according to plan. Let's think about it to learn for the next time. That's all about future focus as well. Then you've got the relationships side, which is often forgotten as well. In terms of resilience, considering that your apprentices will have a social network, and you're encouraging them to share what's going on with friends, family, colleagues are important, having that colleague structure. And there's two thoughts with this as well, especially around apprentices. You'll have brand new apprentices. If you imagine putting yourself in the boots of somebody who's just left school or college, they're 18, very first job they're into, they're going to potentially need a lot of emotional and physical support because they're just be potentially out their depth to start with, and encouraging them to speak. But often there's another sector of apprentices as well which are not forgotten, that's not the word, but it's just assumed they're okay because they're already in post, they've been in a role for 10 years, they've just starting new learning on a new apprenticeship. They're going to have a separate set of needs in terms of emotional, physical support. They've already been in the role, they've got to speak to their colleagues about they're starting to learn this new apprenticeship topics, develop their knowledge and skills. But they're also having a challenge as well because they're doing their day-to-day job as well on top of that, and they're potentially managing friends and family. So it's about encouraging them to look for relationship support wherever they can. And then often the one that's forgotten, the last pillar, is the physical health one. And often at this point I say, try and practice what I preach, do what I say, not what I do. Eating properly, sleeping well, these would be great, wouldn't they? Staying hydrated, listening to you. This by people having a good regime and a good way of managing their physical health, that's going to give them all the energy and all the things that they need to be able to maintain those four other pillars. And also recognizing perhaps with some of your apprentices when it may be that they're not looking, they're taking a rush lunch break, for argument's sake, or they're not having a break away from their laptop or whatever it is they're doing, or they're looking considerably tired. And it's about, as an employer, just taking that little bit of interest to just think about what they're doing and how they're, how they're developing themselves, how they're looking after themselves. So those are recognised as the 5 pillars of resilience that people need to work on and continually work on as well. So any questions from that? Do you sort of agree with those? Does that sort of make sense, do you think? It's often with a lot of these I've found, and I'll speak personally, I look at these, I know these, but I often need to be able to be disciplined to actually follow them myself. Dead easy to tell everyone else, but looking after it myself is tough. Andrew, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, no, I was just going to really agree with what you've actually said, Mark. And I think one of the most important things myself, coming from a training provider background, is having that relationship with the apprentice. I think I was thinking about this earlier. Sometimes the expression I hate is when somebody says, I'm only the apprentice, or I'm only this. I really hate that sort of terminology that people use for themselves. And I think it is about embracing the apprentice as part of the workforce and really looking to see how they are going to be developed and what the next steps are for them, especially, like you say, for those people who are just starting out on their careers, or even those who are starting a second and third career. Like you say, I think it's very easy to automatically assume, and we know we should never assume anything, that someone that has been working for 10, 15, 20 years even doesn't need the support, whereas in fact I think sometimes people who are upskilling might even need a little bit more support for that very reason.
Leah as well. Often I absolutely agree. I'm just seeing in the chat there, it's often forgotten, the physical health side, but it is the key to unlocking all the others and supporting all the others. Rita, you've got your hand up.
Sorry, I was just trying to get just trying to get my microphone to behave. Yeah, I was, as you were talking, Mark, what I was thinking to myself was one concept that I think that underlines these pillars, but also is the ultimate edifice we're trying to build is that sense of belonging.
Yeah.
That real sense of belonging at a deep level, regarding whatever sector the apprentice it has entered and is hoping to end up in, and so that belongingness needs to be, I think, wrapped around all of these concepts. So it's for example in the healthcare sector, it's possibly when I'm thinking back to my most recent work with nursing associates, it's inculcating a sense in male nurses or male apprentices that they belong to the family of nursing, but also, for example, with the nursing associates themselves as a kind of a new constituent of nursing, that they belong to the overall profession of nursing. So it's that sort of belongingness, I think, that all these pillars for me, I guess, exemplifies.
Yeah,
Does that
absolutely.
make sense?
Yeah, it definitely does. Because if we're going back to what I was saying at the beginning about you want somebody who starts their journey to finish their journey and have the best experience they can on their apprenticeship journey. And if you think one of these may not be, looked at or supported in some way, that's going to make it very difficult for them to, complete their journey. Absolutely. We've it's all right us talking about them. How do we improve resilience? What do we do? How do we develop resilience with our apprentices and our colleagues as well? And it's always doing it in small steps. Absolutely. And there are many. These are the 5 sort of key ones, but there are many around developing resilience. And it's about supporting them to identify their goals. What do they want to achieve? Think about the end. How do they see themselves in a year? I know it's all career planning and stuff like that. It's dead easy. Where do you see yourself in a year's time, 5 years' time, and stuff like that? But if they've got to identify small goals to achieve, and that will build their motivation. And then that leads on to that planning frequent small steps to their goals. So have the end in mind, how you're going to get there on these stepping stones of goals. Encouraging them to take on challenges as well, pushing them a little bit outside of their comfort zone in a managed way is a really important thing, because that helps for self-motivation. Absolutely no end. And these challenges don't have to be massively life affirming. It could well be, if you've got apprentices having to sit their functional skills, and they've managed to complete a module or they've passed their certificate, that moves on very nicely. Don't lose the opportunity to celebrate that success, no matter how small other people might see that success. For them, it could have been massive. It's about understanding your apprentice to know that, it may well be, somebody's really comfortable with maths, for argument's sake, but other people, it's the dread, it's the bane of their lives. So to actually celebrate that they passed a module or if they've achieved is fantastic. And that keeps them on the course, if you like. And then that last one is, as I mentioned earlier, mistakes. Remember, mistakes are opportunities to learn. And as long as it's controlled, because an apprenticeship is very much in a controlled environment, I would suggest, where apprentices are, carefully nurtured and watched. And, I'm just thinking in the health sector, for argument's sake, some mistakes, as people know what mistakes they can make compared to ones which are drastic if you don't. Same as manufacturing and engineering, it's all right, if somebody is building something or doing something and they've not followed compliance or the tolerances or the instructions and stuff like that, that could be a serious mistake. But it's just enable him to think, okay, this didn't go well, how can we learn for next time? And having that mindset rather than right, that's it, it's all wrong, you've failed completely, and they beat themselves up anyway. But more importantly, it doesn't help if then the employer or their colleague or their mentor then jumps in as well. So it's about how you approach a mistake, is what I would say. Those are some of the ways for improving resilience. Now, as I said, going on hand with resilience, is this element of mentoring. Now, this is an interesting concept or idea. What's your understanding of being a mentor? What do you think a mentor means for, if you was a mentor to an apprentice? I don't know, in your organisations, do you have mentors? Or are they typically the line manager, who's also the mentor, their supervisor's the mentor? What does it mean when you're mentoring somebody? What do you think? Any thoughts? Who's a
guide, a
guide?
teacher,
An element of teaching possibly there. Yeah, absolutely. Rita?
sounding board.
Sounding board. Oh, now we're getting, now we're moving into what a mentor is. Absolutely, Ellen. Rita?
I personally tend to use a coaching metaphor. I tend to tell, when I've worked with apprentices, I tend to say I will be a coach, a bit like a health coach or a football coach. And they seem to like that.
Now there is we do another webinar. Andrew's been on the pleasure of being on that webinar. We talk about differences between coaching and mentoring, because there are specific differences. What doesn't help is different organisations have different definitions. So what potentially you're thinking of as a coach in some ways might be a mentor, and in other organisations they call them mentors and they're coaches. So the Chartered Management Institute specifically say these are just one of the many people who've spoke about coaching. It's more than just teaching them a skill. It's more, mentoring is more than just teaching them how to do something. So it is defined as a form of employee development. Trusted and respected persons are often used as mentors, and they use their experience to offer guidance, encouragement and support to another person. So it's those bits, Helen, you were saying, Rita, you were saying there as well. It's more than just, I'm going to show you how to do this. I'm going to show you how to build this. I'm going to show you how to complete this process. That's coaching. But mentoring is thinking about those pillars of resilience and also that encouragement and support. And more importantly, what's really suggested and beneficial for apprentices is if an employer doesn't give them the answers, and the employer explains to them, supports them to find their own answers to things, because they learn more from finding out themselves. And that's a tough thing to do, especially as we all live in very time constrained organisations. How many times I'll just show you. It's easier if I just show you. But, if you've got the opportunity to let your mentee, the person you're mentoring, your apprentice, is to enable them to discover more about their capability and potential. That is much more rewarding for them. Some organisations have regular formal mentoring schemes or mentoring meetings. Others, it's more of an informal basis. And all you're thinking of, because a lot of organisations as well, if they're quite small, the manager or their line leader or their supervisor, whoever you call it, will also be potentially nominally their mentor. But it's about when you're having that mentoring period, it could be half hour over lunch, it could be an hour on a Friday afternoon, I don't know. It's taking your leadership management hat off and putting your mentoring hat on to actually, this is about you. This is about how I can support you. How are you finding things? What are you doing? And stuff like that. And to lead on to that, the role of the mentor and the apprentice. So if we think about the role of a mentor, what is suggested? Some of these topics, there's loads of things about being a mentor, but it's about being, questioning people, being, open, using open questions, giving advice on career development or paths that they could take, thinking about the end in mind, giving information, knowledge about the organisation and the occupation where they are, offering support and encouragement. A really important aspect, because ideally, if you're mentoring, you've got some experience, more experience than your apprentice, let's say, offering different perspectives of how they might approach things. Because often we're just set in one, especially in an apprenticeship, they're basically said, you're going to do it like this. but there are wider things. You've had the experience, employers will have had the experience to know about different ways they could approach things, and that really is worth its weight in gold to an apprentice. And then what you want to be doing by being that mentor is to encourage the apprentice to clarify their understanding, sharing thinking, reviewing and reflecting on themselves, changing assumptions, making decisions to maximize their own experience on that apprenticeship, and taking responsibility for their own development. If you can crack that problem, even if they just do it in small chunks, to be able to take ownership of their own learning, and even to challenge. Sometimes you think, how things going? Oh, it's all, it's all right. What do you want me to do? I don't know. You tell me. And so, no. Let's have a think about it. How are you going to develop yourself? And then there's the key thing in the bit in the middle. What do you think both a mentor and apprentice need to do? What do you think that word is in the middle? Any thoughts? Begins with an L. Listen, not hear, listen, because you will have had many conversations with colleagues, apprentices, whoever, and I don't know about you, but often somebody's talking to me and telling me stuff, and you think straight away, that's not exactly what you're meaning or saying, and that's when that comes in, questioning and finding out what it is. And a mentoring role and being a mentor can be very rewarding for both the apprentice and the person being the mentor as well. You build that relationship with them. That gives Rita, as you were saying, that sense of belonging and being part of it. Also, you potentially, if you're a mentor, you're the ear that they potentially go to if they've got a concern or a query. And mentoring can last a lifetime as well. If it's not just, oh, you're an apprentice, you're on this program for 15 months, that's it. I said in my training way back, when I was doing one of these, my manager, he's got a mentor, and it's the same mentor he's had for 20 years, but he's in 3 different organizations away from his mentor now, but they still keep in touch. They still, discuss things and have an opportunity, a coffee and a catch up and things like that. And it's just a sounding board. It's really good. It would be really good if we could all have mentors, and I'd really encourage that in organizations when they can afford to, have the time and the resources to do it. But, mentoring is more than just teaching the apprentice or making sure they've done their assignments on time or completing their written tasks or whatever it is they're doing as part of their apprenticeship. It's about encouraging them to develop in whatever role they're working in. At the start of their journey, halfway through their career journey, towards the end, it doesn't matter. It's still, people need that opportunity to, share what they're doing and, to help them as a mentor helping. Are there any questions around that mentoring and aspect of things? Any thoughts? Actively listening, yeah. That's key as well, Rita. You put in there, protected time. Even if it's short, we're all time poor. But even if it's, for 30 minutes, you've got me. We'll sit in this room, we'll sit somewhere, we'll have a call over Teams or whatever it is. And the opportunities, that is often really valuable to people to feel that they've got that time. You got your hand up as well, Rita.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. So in the sort of context of nursing apprentices, so they will have a practice supervisor, mentor, working with them on a daily basis, and they'll have somebody who's overall responsible for their learning as well. And it's quite structured and set in place, but obviously nursing is very busy, as are all the other sectors. And so often what I find is where the apprentices enjoy themselves and learn well is when they have mentors who are really committed, actively committed to being a mentor, and really strive to create those opportunities to even in the busyness, to listen and be quite proactive about that. So often it comes down to that, the sort of almost personality, and the kind of motivation of the mentor about, how engaged are they in, committing to supporting an apprentice. That's often the magic ingredient, and that's where a lot goes right and a lot goes wrong. But I, with students, I tend to hear students saying, my mentor was not approachable, my mentor had no time for me, my mentor was always too busy. So it's that dismissing those opportunities for engagement is where there can be problems. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that I think there needs to be like a collective sign up, whatever the size of the organization, that we've got these learners, these apprentices here, so we're going to actively and enthusiastically engage, even if we are busy.
What about yourself, Helen? So I see your hands up, Andrea, but do you have coaches or mentors or support aspects for your apprentices?
Yes, we do try and set up mentors. I find it quite a tricky one sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not easy.
To get the mentors to maintain the relationship. But also to get the apprentices to recognise what it brings to them. They kind of cling on to them for the first couple of months, and then, oh well, I'm part of the workforce now, I know what I'm doing. And obviously that's when you see the behaviours come in and things that you want to be picking up on. So it's one of the reasons I've come to listen to this, because it is something that I feel we can do better at. They tend to find their own, even if they don't choose the one that we've given.
Sometimes that's personalities coming together as well, and the opportunity there is, if it's not the one they've given and you approaching the one they have gone to and almost saying, it seems like you've got a good relationship, would you like to be their mentor, and stuff like that. And you tend to find those people who volunteer are the ones that you want to grab, because they've got it, because they're personally interested in helping and supporting somebody. It naturally occurs. And some of the best mentors I've seen or been aware of are those people who've put themselves out to do it. Some people just naturally do it. They just want to help and support, and it's grabbing those. Yeah, definitely. Andrew, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, my sort of question, or just putting it out there, was more so for the very small businesses that may be taking on an apprentice who just haven't got the manpower within their business to have a mentor. They're wearing so many different hats, and obviously the training provider does have a duty for the teaching side of things. But I was just really thinking about how you would, as the apprentice, feel that you were being supported in such a small business, and whether you would perhaps look at more outside influences. I'm thinking there, like sort of the Association of Apprentices, that type of thing, for the more support for I know it probably doesn't come into Rita or Helen's industry or their sector at the moment, but it's just how those apprentices would be supported.
There's two ways to approach it, Andrea. There's one, definitely, and even as a minimum, somebody who could find them links to the Association of Apprenticeships or different things that they could connect to socially. Remember that pillar about social and relationship. But also, even if an organisation, and we work with organisations that are very small, and it's about just being clear that your manager, without a shadow of a doubt, or your line leader or supervisor, can be a mentor. But it's just in that protected time, which I really like, Rita, you put in there about a protected time. The apprentice and the manager know in that time the manager's taken their manager hat off. It's trickier, but put a mentoring hat on.
So like an education piece, really, for employers there, in that, yes, this is your mentoring time. We are not talking about anything else, and it's being able to make that divide, I suppose, really.
That's it. Yeah, it's about very clear and setting the scene up front, exactly what this meeting's going to be about, what expectations are, how can we support. And at the beginning, when you look to engage in mentoring, it will be tricky. The apprentice will typically not often be comfortable coming forward. But as that relationship builds, you want to really encourage them to start taking ownership and coming to their mentor. The ideal is they take full responsibility for their apprenticeship. That's really tough to get to that stage, but any way along that route to taking more ownership of what they want to do and running their ideas past their managers, colleagues, etc., is something. Because as soon as they've taken, you want to grab onto. As soon as they've taken that bit of motivation, that bit, you want to grab onto that. Absolutely. We're pretty much at the end. I think the last slide, if I can get it to come over, is questions, takeaway questions. So I think we've had questions as we're going along, to be honest, which is always the way. But are there any sort of final questions? What do you think your takeaway might be from this session?
I think my question would be, do you recommend sort of formal programs of mentorships, with documentation and regular reviews booked in for them, or do you leave it on a more informal setting?
That's a good question, Helen. And the answer to that is yes and no. It's just right. It's all to do with the organisation and the structure. I'd definitely say, to start with, if you're encouraging somebody to be a mentor, to provide, some training, mentoring training to start with, to open their eyes to what mentoring is. Look for mentoring. There's a lot of free courses around mentoring as well that are out there, to give them an understanding of what mentoring actually is. But to start with, what I've found is having some form of structure to start with. Like, we're going to have every Friday afternoon at 2:00 is going to be my mentoring meeting. And then what you tend to find happens as a relationship grows, it stretches out, and people, I don't really need to meet, but I know you're there if you need me. And it sort of becomes a little bit informal as the relationship grows. But to encourage apprentices and develop that experience with apprentices going forward, I'd encourage setting up some regular meets in the first 2, 3, 4 months, I would suggest. There's no set formula for it, but just to know, even just a weekly catch up, monthly might be too long to start with, every week for 10 minutes, half hour, how is everything? Yeah. And then it sort of stretches out. That would be what I would suggest.
I think I would agree with that, because I think as well, if you've got somebody that's starting on the apprenticeship program, whether they're new into your organisation or being upskilled, to have that protected time would also run nicely alongside the training provider sessions, which should be scheduled in. Sometimes I know for 12 months or so, I know things change, but to also know that you've got that time with your mentor as well, that you can potentially discuss anything that's coming up with your training provider meeting and vice versa. So I think it's really good to put that plan in place. I think it formalises, but it also, I think it just sets that plan. It goes back to development, doesn't it? Your self-development, having a plan for the end goal.
And I totally agree with your point there, Rita, those 2 points. Supporting and preparing mentors is key. They understand, but really sometimes they're often forgotten, recognising by others in the workplace that the mentoring role is valued and having it structured. So that also shows to the apprentice, if they've been allocated an hour, they say, yeah, this apprenticeship is valued because they're giving me the time to do stuff. They're giving me, that's really, that's definitely really key. Definitely key. Any other thoughts? And we've come up to the end, actually. 1 minute over.
Rita's hand up.
Sorry, Rita.
It's just a very quick overall thought about resilience that applies, I think, that to all professions, is the fact that, we're trying to create resilient organizations, resilient industries, so like in engineering or in healthcare. So it's important, I think, with mentors to get into that discussion about what are we trying to achieve here through apprenticeships. We're trying to, grow our own, grow the next generation. And I think when mentors get that sense of understanding that, we're all sort of, it's a joint effort here. Because we had a lot of resistance to the nursing associate program. at the beginning when we were introducing it into the NHS, because people were really burnt out and tired, and mentors were going, oh God, not another lot of students to mind. But when we had those discussions about, well, what are we trying to achieve here? We're trying to create more nurses. We need more nurses. Once mentors understood that it was about, everyone within that profession, whatever it is, be it engineering or whatever, that we're trying to, it's that future focus.
Absolutely.
And so I guess it's important that we with those conversations, like you were saying, those open and honest conversations, that we remain future focused as well about what we're all trying, what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And also, just to add that last little point, it's just to add what you're saying as well. Mentors play, and let people who are mentoring recognise they are a key component in the massive cog of an organisation and an apprenticeship programme. It's not, and we need apprentices and mentors. It's, you're an important integral part of this process for the apprentice. You're valued, and that really motivates. Absolutely motivates. The final slide really is to say the next webinar is the 12th of June, and we'll be talking about the apprenticeship EPA processes, gateways and plannings.
I think with that, no matter, and just going back, Mark, to something that you said a couple of times today, having the end in sight. So I think no matter where you are on the apprenticeship journey, even if you've got an apprentice who has just started, you should always be talking and know EPA. It should never come up and bite anybody as a surprise, either at 15 months, 18 months or wherever. So I think it's never too early to start planning for endpoint assessment. I'd say a bit like Christmas, never too early to start planning for that. Or maybe not. But I think it's really important so that throughout the length of the apprenticeship programme, you can sort of see areas in which you as an employer might need to develop, but also your apprentice might need to develop also in terms of getting them ready for the gateway, which again is a terminology that some people are still thinking, what is gateway? And for the actual planning of the endpoint itself. So I think no matter where you are on the stage of the journey, the next two webinars, in some respects, are the most important. And it's, because this is no pressure again though, Mark, because I know you'll be hosting these, but I think it is, some of the most important parts, because you're getting the apprentice over the line and then either continuing hopefully in the business or going on to even, more qualifications, etc.
You do these monthly?
Yes, we do.
Throughout the year?
We've had a series of 6. They've all been recorded, so they are available upon our website, and you will get a recording sent out to you from today's session as well. But also, and obviously you can see my details on there, I'm here to talk to anybody about the apprenticeship programme, no matter what stage the apprenticeship programme, although my title is completions, it talks about the whole apprenticeship programme, so from induction right through to the very end, and bits in between.
Great, thank you.
Other than that, I thought there was a thank you. I'll just do I'll do a personal thank you slide. Thank you for today. Thank you for taking part and sharing. It's been great to see the feedback and the stuff that you've been talking about as well. So last thing for me to say is enjoy the rest of the day. Have a time for a cup of coffee, maybe, and a quick sandwich if you haven't already.
And listen to birdsong. Yes.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mark, for doing that. That's really brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you very much.